Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Fact, the series that discuss international political issues every week. Today, we would like to talk about the Britain elections and outcomes winning of Conservative Party in these elections. We have two respected guests from USA. We have Miss Randi Nord, American analyst and founder of Geopolitical Alert, and also Mr. James Carey, who is also an analyst from Geopolitical Alert. I would like to welcome both of you to the program, and I would like to start with the first question, which is basically the main reason or main aspects that could cause the winning of Conservative Party in these elections. And I would like to know if other alternative causes or reasons in this outcome or not.
The whole issue of Brexit really began as a conservative concept, as an alternative to the neoliberal EU. But since Brexit began as a conservative talking point, it kind of course took on the same racist and reactionary connotations we see in the US about refugees and minorities and jobs and things like that. So the referendum showed that the British people wanted to leave the EU, and it's been years now since the vote. So the Tories really capitalized on the Get Brexit Done rhetoric, which people wanted to hear. But the job of the Labour Party then should have become, okay, how do we create a pro-worker Brexit? How do we capitalize on this backlash against neoliberalism and use it to create class consciousness so people know we're the right alternative to right-wing populism? And it seems like they really failed there. They put forth firm enough platform, and the media was. They did not put form a firm enough platform, and the media was really stacked against them from the very beginning. And then on top of that, you had the anti-Semite smear campaign, propaganda, and the neoliberal faction of the Labour Party trying to push out any genuine leftist policies and politicians. So with all of that, the course was really clear, I think, for the Conservatives to sweep the election.
Thank you. Now, as you know, Boris Johnson is facing so many challenges in the next maybe years after this election. And there has been so many discussions concerning Brexit and also other, challenges or problems in Britain. So, James, what do you think Boris Johnson will face in next years, and what will be challenges facing him?
I think, well, let's say Boris got his wish. He's in charge of doing Brexit now, and that's going to be his main challenge. Like Randy spoke on a little bit, Labour should have articulated a pro-worker Brexit plan, because the Tories is definitely going to be pro-corporate. And, we saw the establishment, although they don't necessarily like Boris Johnson, stack up behind him, including, the former Labour media, pro-Labour media stack up behind Johnson just out of opposition to Jeremy Corbyn. And I think doing Brexit in a way that these interests are going to they're never going to let up on Johnson during Brexit, because they also are pro-Remain elements within British society. These are the big corporations and things like that, like the media conglomerates that took down Corbyn that ended up backing Johnson. So he has a long road ahead of him doing Brexit, both against the corporate interests, but also against the working class of Britain. There's going to be huge problems with things like the NHS, which he's, Corbyn leaked documents showing they're going to open up to American contractors and consultants and things like that. There's going to be massive cuts. I'm sure the austerity program will continue that's gone on under the Tories all this time. Even if the media and all, the business interests prefer the Tories to Labour, they also prefer the EU. So they're going to have two sectors of society stacked up against them. And on top of that, there's also the issue of Ireland and Scotland. We know Corbyn also leaked documents during the campaign showing that there might be a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. So that could cause a major issue. And now nationalists hold more seats in Northern Ireland than loyalists do. So there's there's more nationalist MPs coming out of Northern Ireland than there are people loyal to London. So this is going to be a major problem. And Scotland has already said, Nicola Sturgeon has said the SNP will go ahead and have a referendum whether, London likes it or not, which is going to cause massive problems too. That, you could see a fight similar to what happened in, say, Catalonia in Spain or something like that, where the EU has to step in. And it's a whole nother mess for Johnson on top of Brexit already happening. Boris has to negotiate post-Brexit, though. That's what I think is going to be the main challenge for him. Trying to get American companies to come in on new trade deals and things like that. The British people might have had problems with their system as it was, but they're not going to like ours even more. So he's going to have to face trying to implement American-style capitalism on a country that at least had some type of social safety net, although they're gutting it every day.
Thank you, James. I would like to focus on the other side, which is Labour Party. I would like to know the other side that might be facing Labour Party. I would like to know the future that might be facing elections. Labour Party. So what is your opinion, Randy, about the future that will be facing the Labour Party?
Well, it doesn't look good. Because of course the massive election failure is being blamed on Corbyn and his more radical pro-worker, anti-imperialist, anti-Zionist wing of the Labour Party. And we've seen already that Corbyn has stepped down or is preparing to step down, and I definitely think we'll see the more centrist or neoliberal elements try to move in and take the party over. I saw an article from The Guardian today talking about how 6 of the 7 contenders on course to replace Corbyn are women. And I'm always uncomfortable when the media, mainstream media, starts going out of their way to promote women candidates, because that usually means they're hiding behind identity politics to normalize anti-worker and neoliberal agendas. And in the same article, some of the women were spewing centrist talking points, which is exactly what the Labour Party doesn't need. They were talking about expanding the platform to reach a wider base. And anytime you hear that big tent narrative coming from the left, it always means that they plan to adopt right-wing policies like privatization, Zionism, and imperialism. And it never means going further to the left to adopt pro-worker policies. So at this point, it looks like there's going to be, they're blaming the massive failure on these more, radical elements, and using that as kind of an excuse to kind of push the party back into the center, which would be more like our Democratic Party here, pro-corporation, staying in, pro-remain in the EU, anti-worker, pro-war, you name it. So right now, and then of course, those aren't what the broader working class base of the UK would want.
Okay, thank you, Randy. You also previously mentioned about the anti-Zionist slogans and approach that Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party has chosen so far, and I would like to go to more details, asking from James, if you may. I would like to know how much the British society and the people of Britain would buy such slogans concerning, opposition toward Zionism and any kind of anti-Zionist, slogan. I would like to know if people would buy such a thing from the Labour Party or not.
Well, I think this largely depends on what Randy just spoke about, which is the future of the Labour Party, and they will attempt to shift more towards the center. But one thing that the Labour Party hasn't accounted for is that Jeremy Corbyn survived multiple leadership challenges. And there's a bunch of voters who have stuck to the anti-imperialist line. Ed Miliband actually changed the franchise to one member of the party, one vote in the party leadership. And that ended up, helping Corbyn survive and the left survive. So there's a lot of Corbyn activists in the party, and pro-Corbyn, leftist activists who are still in the party and who are the main voting bloc of the party who won the debate. So I think the Labour Party, I don't think most people were swayed by the arguments that, Corbyn was an anti-Semite or anything like that. As much as they weren't swayed by him, in pictures of ceremonies for the IRA or anything like that. I don't think it was a concern. I think, returning to the first question, Brexit was the concern. And I think that, what could happen with the anti-Zionism is it may continue, or Labour could fall apart. If the centrists end up disenfranchising most of the actual leftists in the party, Labour could end up falling apart, and it could end up becoming just a shell of a party, because we know the neoliberal side and the imperialist side also is not popular, as much as we watched the Democrats lose on that platform here in 2016. So I don't think that Labour can necessarily return to being a party of imperialist capital, or it'll just end up being a losing party. There's talk of a new party by, anti-Zionist George Galloway forming a workers' party in the UK. And that could present a challenge if it becomes popular to, Labour. But I don't know that that'll happen, and I think Labour is still going to have to contend with the anti-imperialist and leftist contingents that are actually, the majority of the party. And like I said, helped Corbyn stay in power even with all the smears of anti-Semitism.
Right, thank you, James. Here I would like to go into some part of the main, I can say, problems that has been going on in Britain, which is Brexit. So after the election, after coming conservatives to power and continuing their power in the administration, I would like to know if there would be any kind of change in the course of discussions on Brexit, and what will be, generally what will be the future of this issue in Britain. So, Randi, what is your opinion about this point?
Well, like James mentioned earlier, the pressure's really on Johnson to live up to pushing Brexit through. The referendum shows that the people wanted to leave the EU, and it's been years now. So they really capitalized on the get Brexit done rhetoric, which everyone really wanted to hear. So the job lies on Johnson to push it through, and it's going to be tough because people like Trump and Johnson rode to power on this anti-neoliberal backlash wave of populism. But when push comes to shove, they always end up pushing through neoliberal or fascist economic policies, which I really consider the same thing. Pro-corporation. We'll see a lot of privatization and anti-worker trade deals. We'll definitely see a lot of chipping away at the NHS. I don't think they'll switch to, totally US style healthcare system overnight, but we know that the same companies here in the US are just salivating at the chance to get in there and make money. So we'll definitely see bits and pieces chipping away. But I don't know if, with Trump, there's the personality that everyone loves. His supporters are very dedicated to him. They'll eat up whatever he says, but the British electorate doesn't really have that kind of feelings towards Johnson. So the pressure's really on them to push Brexit through, and whatever kind of deals come out of that, we'll probably see a response to in whatever election comes next.
I just would like to say, I think the future of Labour still lies in being on the left. In 2016, we saw Theresa May call an election where she thought she was guaranteed a majority against Labour led by Jeremy Corbyn. And it completely failed, and she ended up in a minority government with the complete, loyalist lunatics from Northern Ireland that she had to ally herself with just to hold together a minority. And Labour's platform of, a country for the many, not the few, was extremely popular in 2016. Once they released that manifesto, I mean, it was overnight the polls closed between the Conservatives and Labour. And if Labour wants to continue winning going forward, I think it is still to be on the left because, like Randy said, Brexit with its, Corbyn already showed that part of they're selling off NHS data to Amazon, and there's only more of that to come. And I think it's going to be completely unpopular with the working class of Britain. And I think Labour's only chance to win them back will be to stay on the left because there's nothing appealing in the neoliberalism of the Blairites and, sort of Clinton Blair neoliberal consensus that's going to appeal to working class voters in England. And the voting base may shrink, Scotland may go away, Northern Ireland may go away. These things could happen too. So I think, Labour's best bet is to stay on the left and stay anti-imperialist, stay anti-capitalist, and those things can't be done in the EU anyway. Corbyn should have stayed hard leave. He never should have waffled to the centrists and tried to talk about a second referendum or anything like that, because even his plans to nationalize things would never be allowed in the European Union. So a workers' Brexit has to be done, and I think Labour needs to lead that charge again, and it'll have to be done with somebody else like Corbyn. It won't be with any type of Blairite, any like identity politics type figure, possibly a minority or a woman or whatever that they try and put up to put a new face to neoliberalism. It won't be popular. So I think if the Labour wants to succeed in the future, they have to stay to the left. I think that's the best choice. It won them, a strong minority in 2016, and I think it can win them elections in the future. I think the problem was flopping on Brexit, and it shouldn't have been done.
Okay, thank you, James. And Randy, what is your opinion about the whole situation? I mean, about the whole situation. In case you want to add something, I would hear it. But also, it is also very interesting. That the competition Labour Party and Labour Party is Conservative Party is very close, and it's very close. And as James say, maybe left, and they keep up with their slogans and approach. Maybe in future they might have potential of winning the elections in future. What do you like to add? What do you like to add to the subject, Randy?
James is definitely right where whether you have a neoliberal-led Labour Party or right-wing populist Tories pushing through Brexit, the electorate's not going to like either of those outcomes. So really the only option is a worker-friendly Brexit, because this is a huge change, and of course there's nothing worker-friendly about the EU, but breaking off leaves a lot of opportunity for corporations to swing in and new trade deals to be forged. And these changes are going to hit the public hard and fast. And if Johnson starts pushing these things through, I'm sure people will respond and be angry, because as much as they do want Brexit done, if they see what comes of what the right-wing populists push through, they're not going to be happy with that. So like James said, that's really the only option is a pro-worker Labour Brexit, because I feel like nobody will accept anything less. He's definitely right there.
Okay, thank you so very much for your informative and fruitful discussions. Carey, James Carey, and political editor at Geopolitical Alert, and also Randi Nord, also the founder and founder and Geopolitical Alert. Thank you both for giving us your time, and I would like to have you again. And I would like to have you again. Thank you again on next episode. Thank you again and goodbye.